Hey guys, welcome to this video tutorial on master detail flow. Now this tutorial will mainly focus on how to create a master detail flow for your Android applications. Now this is just a new structure for your applications design. Now so far we've been looking at just plain activities, selecting blank activities for your applications, and we have been adding widgets onto this and doing some operations. But today we will look into something called as master detail flow. Now we would have already encountered this while using the applications in our mobile phones. Now let's see how to create a simple application using our master detail flow. So what do I do is I go to file, I select new and new project. I give a project name, I call it as master detail. Okay. And I give next, I keep giving next. And in this I select on master detail flow. Now this is nothing but you would have already seen this on tablets. Now what happens here is the screen is divided into two different panes. Okay, onto your left hand side it would have few options, few items or a list. Okay, now when you click on the list or the items on the left pane, you would be able to see the contents of that pane into the right hand side part of your screen. Now this is called as your details pane. Now this will be my items pane and this will be my details pane. Now this would look very good on a tablet, but whereas in your mobile phone we don't have enough screen space to do this. So what will happen is your mobile phone will have just only the items similar to this one. It will have items, a list of items in one page, and when you click on this it will direct you to another page which will look something like this, probably this. Okay, and if you click back button it will come back to your list. Okay, now this will look very good on a tablet, but in a mobile phone it will be differentiated by a set of items and then onto the screen. Okay, and I click master detail flow and click next. Okay, and here I am going to create an application which will have the names of frequently visited websites on the left hand side, and when you click on the items on the left hand side you will be redirected to the content on the right hand side. So I would call this as my web page, small letter web page, and this is just a plural of what kind of object we are going to use, plural web pages. Okay, and I click on finish. My project is getting loaded, and before that what do we have to do? We will have to open our Android virtual device. Alright, now my environment is already set up. So what do we do now? Now if you go and have a look at the web pages list here, now you would have, so far we would have been seeing only one XML file and one Java file associated with it. But whereas now in this type of activity, now we have several XML files, and if you go inside your Java you will have many fragments. You will have something called as activity, you will have something called as fragments. There are plenty of things which are already being created for you. Now fortunately now we don't have to code much. All the fragments, all the activities, all the lists that we require are already being created by Android Studio for us, thanks to Android Studio. And now, so what do we do first? We go to app, we expand Java, we expand dummy, and inside your dummy we have something called as dummy content. Now open that file. Okay, this is nothing but this is just a helper class. Now you see the comments here. This is just an helper class for providing sample content for user interfaces created by the Android Studio. Now this what you could do is, now because we're just learning Android Studio, what you could do is you could just edit the contents in this file so that we would know the functionality, how a master detail flow would work, and see the output. And if we are going to develop some application on our own, we would use this as a template for us to create more applications. Okay, now as we go to do this exercise we will learn about this more. Okay, so what do I do first? I open this file, and before that I would want to tell you, by default we would be working on fragment underscore webpage underscore detail.xml and webpage detail fragment.java. Now these are the two files which will be opened by default, and we would be working on this for this tutorial. Okay, now coming back to our dummy content.java. Now what I would want you to do is I would want you to scroll down. Okay, now if you come at the bottom, you would have a class called as public static class dummy item. Okay, now what this dummy item is nothing but it makes a list of items for you. Now this list of items would appear on the left hand side of the pane, and when you click any one of this item, the related content will be opened on the right hand side page or into another page in mobile phones. Okay, now what do we do here is, now these items will have several properties. Now these items, when I say items, it means objects in Java. Okay, so these objects will have different properties associated with them. Now the properties can be their ID, it can be their content, it can be their name, or it can be the URL, it can be any kind of property. Okay, now what we do is, now in this case I am going to, as I told you, we are going to create web pages on the left hand side, and when I click on the link, it will open up the page on the right hand side page. So what are the three essential properties which are required for a web page? That I would require an ID, and I would require a name for the item. So I would replace this with something called as item underscore name. Now you could have anything for this. Okay, and I would add one more property to it. I would add it as public string with a capital S. Okay, and I would add the URL to it, because we would have to pass the URL so that it opens in our application. Okay, now we have three properties: ID, item underscore name, and the URL. Okay, now we have another method inside the class. Okay, now what this does is it makes use of the keyword this. Now what does this operator do? Now we would have already learned this in Java. Now this operator refers to the current class instant variables. Okay, now this basically assigns values to your current variable. Okay, now what have we done? We have included three properties to the list item. Okay, so what do we do is this dot id is equal to id. We haven't changed anything with that. We have changed the content to something called as item underscore name. Okay, and you will have to refer it to the same variable item underscore name, and we had created one more property, this dot URL, which has to refer to your URL. Okay, very good. And in our method, we'll have to pass three parameters since we are using three properties. Okay, go back to string, and the third parameter is URL. Very good. Okay, now once you've done this, the last thing you'll have to change in this class is you will have to return the item name. Now it is content by default. Now we'll have to change this to item underscore. Okay, now scroll up. You would be seeing few errors here. Now why are we seeing this error? Now you have a method here which is already being created for us by Android Studio. Now this method is called as add item. Now what this will do is it will add items to the list which appears on the left hand side. Okay, now what is happening inside the method? Whenever this method gets fired, it automatically creates an object. Okay, it uses the new keyword by creating the object called by the dummy item. Okay, now whenever this dummy item is called, it will come back to this particular method. Now this method has three parameters, whereas here we have only two parameters. So what do we have to do? We'll have to add one more parameter. Now the third parameter here is the URL. So what I do is I first change the item. Okay, my frequently visited website is YouTube. I watch a lot of videos, a lot of tutorials. So what do I do is http://www.youtube.com, and then I go to my Gmail. Okay, these are the first three websites which I visit every morning when I come to office. Okay, :/www.gmail.com. One is my Hotmail. I save this. Okay, and now we have got all the content which has to be edited in our dummy content.java file ready. And next, something which we have to go back to our XML file. Now we'll have to look into the design. So far we've got the brains of the application running. Now we'll have to go and change the interface for you. Okay, so what do we do is we already have a text view by default here. Now I would want you to delete this one, delete everything that is there. Now since this is the only widget available on the screen, it would not allow you to right click and click on delete. So what we have to do for this is go to your text, select your text and delete. Okay, now what shall we do is, now so far we have been dragging widgets from the widget window and putting it onto your screen. Now we will see a slightly different method, okay, wherein we will write down the source code, okay, and using this source code our widget will be placed on the device. Okay, so what do? We start with our XML simple housekeeping stuff. So what do we do? Question mark. You'll have to mention the XML version, which is 1.0. Okay, and encoding to be UTF-8. And there you go. Okay, why is it throwing up an error? Okay, now we're good to go. And now we would use a property called as web view. Okay, now this would mainly use to connect our items on the list to the internet. Okay, now if we have to view anything using the internet connection, you'll have to put them inside something called as web view. Okay, now select this web view, okay, and you'll have to give them their appropriate package. Android.apk res Android. Select this one, okay, and in the next line you will have to use something called as Android :ID. Okay. ID is equal to @ ID / I give an ID for this detail _ yeah. This you are allowed to do anything with this. You could give any name, and what I do is I have to select the layout, Android _ layout, and I give a width for the layout, _width. Now I would want the width to be the same size as the screen, so I select the property called as match parent. Now the parent is nothing but the screen, which is here. Okay, so I would want our widget to match the entire screen, so I select match parent and Android :layout. Spelling mistake. Android layout _height. Spelling mistake. Height, I can match parent as well. Okay, and then I close that bracket. I save this, and if you come back to the design view, our web view is added onto the device screen. Okay, now that we are having our brains for the application, our interface for it ready, now we would have to connect these two in order for the application to run successfully. So what do we do for that is, okay, like I told you earlier, our .java file webpage_detail_fragment.java and our fragment webpage_detail.xml are the two files which has to be connected. Now this is the brains of the application. This is where we've got the items created, our list created, the objects and the function which are being called. Okay, and this is our fragment _ webpage_detail.xml, which is nothing but our interface. Okay, now why is it throwing okay, now we've done that, and we have something called as webpage_detail_fragment.java. Now this will work as a controller to your dummy content.java. Now this is where we have all the brains of the function. Okay, now in your dummy content is where we had all the items created, we had where the lists created, the methods being called, whereas in your webpage_detail_fragment.java is where our onCreate function is. Now onCreate is the function which will be triggered for the very first time, okay, whenever the application is created. So you come back to your onCreate function, come back to your webpage_detail_fragment.java, and the first thing which I want you to do is import the package. Okay, import, we had used a widget called as web view. Okay, so I would want you to widget dot view. Okay, come back down. Okay, now if you come back down, you will find the function called as on create view. Okay, now inside your on create, now we have all these inflator, inflate, everything being already added, so you don't have to worry about that. Now all that is required here is you will have to change the text view. Now this is nothing but the variable and the method which are called when the text view which deleted was there in the program. So we will have to change this to web view. Okay, because we had used a web view. Okay, to view.find view by id r.id, and our id which I used for the web view is nothing but detail underscore area. Now this is the id which we had given for my interface. This is the widget which I added, which is used for communication with the internet. Okay, and instead of set text, I use something called as load URL. Okay, load URL, and m item is nothing but the master item. Okay, m refers to master, and this is nothing but the master item which we created in a dummy content.java. Now, okay, now you don't have to worry much about it. All you have to do is m item dot content. Now instead of content, we'll have to refer to URL, which has to be triggered when you click the item on the left hand side pane. Okay, now we've done the editing correctly. I hope there are no more errors. Do we have any errors? Why is this error throwing out Android? Okay, don't worry about this. Okay, now all we have to do, the last thing is go to your manifest file, Android manifest.xml. Okay, now whenever we opened an application, have you seen where it would ask for your permission whether the application wants to access your contacts? Say yes or no. The application would want your permission to access your location. The application would want to access your photographs. Okay, now if you had seen this, this is the thing which runs behind it. Okay, now this application has to access the internet connection in your mobile phone. So in order to do that, you will have to use this permission, and you will have to use android.permission.internet. Okay, and if you do this application, you have given the rights to access the mobile phone's internet connection. Okay, why is this throwing me an error? Okay, let me just pause the video. Alright, okay, now that we have given the permissions for our application to access the internet, it is time for us to run. Now I had made a small mistake, so I changed it. I tell you, please go to dummy content.java. When I changed the parameters, I forgot to change the parameter for the second one, so please change it to item underscore name. Okay, it would have been content in your application. Please change to item underscore name. Okay, after you save this and click on run, I have already run it in order to save some time. Okay, it would open up something like that. Now since this is a mobile phone, it is showing you list in one screen, and when you click on the item on the list, it will direct you to another page which will open the website which we had mentioned there. Okay, now if you have to go back, click on back. Okay, you would come back to this main screen. Now if it was a tablet, you would have this list of items on the left hand side, and when you click on this item on the left hand side, it will open onto the right pane, that is the detail pane which is there in the tablet. Now since we don't have much space in our mobile phone, we are getting something like this. Okay, now hope you had enjoyed this tutorial. Now I have a question for you which has to be done for this lab exercise, and this is the question for it. Now make a note of this. If you want to write it down in your observation, please pause the video and please write it down in your observation. Now you will have to create a master detail flow very similar to what we saw in this video, with different three websites, different three web pages which are very required, which is a major requirement for VATN. Okay, now do this. If you have any doubts, please post your comments or doubts or queries in the comment section which is found below. Okay, I would definitely reply to you. Please try this, submit your answers in Moodle. I will put a link very soon. Submit it in Moodle, and hope this video helps. Thanks for watching this video.